Redfall, Arkane Austin's ambitious open-world vampire shooter, embarked on its journey with high expectations but encountered a host of issues at launch. The absence of classic takedowns, AI pathing problems, and an abundance of other technical glitches further muddled the experience. Fast forward 6 to 7 months and Arkane Austin has released 3 major updates. These updates addressed a variety of issues with Redfall, such as AI responsiveness and enemy encounters, to performance improvements and new weapons. Each update aims to reshape Redfall into the game it was meant to be. As we venture into the revamped world of Redfall, it's time to see if these updates have successfully resurrected the game from its initial undead state. I recently began Redfall from the beginning with a full squad to test the game once again. Multiplayer was where I felt the most went wrong in the game. I played the game with some members of my squad that also played when the game was first released, as well as someone who had never played the game before to grab their thoughts on the updates and the current state of Redfall. I have to say, compared to my initial experience hosting a multiplayer session, this one went smoother by far. We all watched the beginning cinematic and loaded in at roughly the same time. No frame drops, crashing, or graphical errors that I believe those big water walls initially caused. Everything was going right, and nothing seemed particularly worrisome until we got to the fire station. Our squad member who hadn't played the game before had somehow been loaded into an instance of the firehouse that was already fixed up when we first arrived. This caused a lot of confusion amongst our squad mates, and then we were fast-tracked through that mission and essentially skipped that whole setup portion of the game. Everything from then on was mostly individual affecting. For example, squad members bunny hopping through the floors, textures still taking their time to load in, and occasional T-posing viewed by various members of the squad at different times. This kind of jank is okay to me because it can be passed off as just kind of funny, and it wasn't happening as much as it did initially when we first tried playing Redfall, but it's just not something you want to see in a game that should have been released polished, especially when it's 6 months down the track. Let's take a brisk walk through the 3 major updates Arkane Austin have released and compare these changes to the game today. How have they addressed my concerns shared in my review? And do I think this game is on the path to redemption? Released on June 12th and embellished with a note from Arkane Austin, there was an acknowledgement of some very major problems with Redfall and a general thanks to the players who have been spending time in the game and sharing gameplay and detailed feedback. Major Update 1. Some of the most notable changes included enemy encounter frequency, enemy AI responsiveness, vampire combat efficiency, graphical fidelity improvements, shattering glass, and visual variation. These changes demonstrated a commitment from Arkane Austin to swiftly address crucial gameplay and technical issues. This update gave us a lot of promise and really did feel great to read through, seeing so many considerations for issues in so many areas of the game. Unfortunately, even after this update and its incremental fixes, the game was still problematic, but I stayed patient for the string of major updates and hotfixes to come. The gap between Major Update 1 and Major Update 2 was hard. It felt like nothing was changing for the better. But finally, in October, we got our second major update for Redfall. There was more focus on increasing the enemy population in the open world of Redfall. They added more unique open world enemy encounters. Players could now sneak up and take down unaware cultists and bellwether enemies with staked weapons. They added visually distinct player indicators and color-coded pings for multiplayer sessions, and Redfall finally got a 60 FPS performance mode on the Xbox Series X and S, which is massive. We are really starting to see fixes to some major criticisms come to life. The fact that the player can now actively take down unaware human enemies with staked weapons was fantastic news. The lack of creative takedowns was a major complaint in my review, so to see some work on making takedowns more interesting was promising, as well as further work on increasing enemy population density and more varied encounters. I'm sure that's something we'll see consistently being tweaked for the next few major updates. The ping distinctions were also a brilliant addition to the game. Such a great quality of life aspect that bothered me often in multiplayer sessions. We didn't have to wait as long for Major Update 3 as it was released in mid-November. Another long list of fixes and quite a few interesting changes. A nerf to Devinder's ultraviolet light, preventing it from shattering special vampires. Human enemies were now able to climb awnings. Considering how mobile the enemies were in Dishonored 2 and Deathloop, this is really good news. And there was an addition of an unrivaled sniper rifle with a unique weapon trait, the Basilisk. The Basilisk charges the first bullet in a full magazine with UV power that can petrify vampires. Previously, Jacob's unique character weapon, Lonely Thing, was the only one. But the Basilisk can be used by any character, making it the first real unrivaled sniper for us to use. Again, each of these major updates have been quite major, with a long string of fixes that address an even longer string of issues. Since Redfall came out, Arkane has released 3 major updates with 2 small hotfixes. It's clear that the team is absolutely dedicated to making Redfall the game it was meant to be, but the length of time between the handful of updates also demonstrates just how unready Redfall was in the first place. I'll also acknowledge that the Redfall social pages have barely been posting content about the game, only posting the occasional GIF, short clip, or sharing fan art to the page. Though sometimes the radio silence seems deafening, it's clear that Arkane Austin is focusing their efforts on revamping the game, between not wanting to be legitimately absent from players, but also prioritising their focus on where it should be. What I'm quite curious about is when they were potentially planning on dropping further content for the game, and if that roadmap has ultimately been delayed. We know that they were planning on dropping 2 further playable heroes into Redfall with the Bite Back Edition's Hero Pass. Are we within the next year or so going to even see that new content? It's hard to know how hard we should be paying attention when it could be quite a while before we see anything majorly new at all. A publicly released roadmap might cause internal blunders, though it would help players gain some sort of idea of what to expect. I've put in an extra 10 hours into the game in its current state post Update 3. Overall, I do think it's worlds better than it was, but at the same time, I still think this game would have copped a similar amount of criticism had it released in this state in May. All the issues I encountered seem to still be there in smaller doses. This is absolutely a start. I'm just not sure how long players are going to stay engaged with the game unless more content is released. But if more content is released, people jump back in, and if the player's experience is still compromised by a multitude of technical errors, then that just might be the stake through the heart for Redfall. I always have and still see so much potential for this game. And if you haven't watched my deep dive into my thoughts and feelings about Redfall, please go check that out. I really wanted to take the time to discuss as many aspects of the game as I could, and overall, I enjoyed Redfall and I would really love to see the game continue to improve and flourish. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider leaving a like or a thanks on the video. And for the sake of positivity, what are your favourite fixes and additions to Redfall? Drop them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!